Hello and welcome to I Talk to Ghosts, the podcast that is always delighted to find a skeleton or two in the closet. I'm your haunted host, Jennifer, a spirit medium and a teller of ghost stories. Now, on this podcast, we have covered haunted basements, haunted attics. So tonight, let's throw a few more doors open with stories of haunted closets. This is such a common theme, so I'm happy to be telling you these stories, but I do apologize if afterwards you find you can't sleep with your closet door open. I never like to do that to begin with. I don't know, I've always thought of closets as a bit of a liminal space. I'm not sure why. I don't know if that really qualifies, but do you agree? I'd love to hear your thoughts. After the spooky, I do have some spiritual treats for you. Linger near for some spirit work as I demonstrate my abilities at mediumship. But first, click on the nightlight. The ghosts in the closet are ready to greet you right now. When I was about 8 years old, my whole family was visiting my cousin's house. Between my cousin's family and mine, there were a lot of adults and kids of various ages, causing social commotions and chaos throughout the day. I have a loud family. In truth, the adults were occupied with their adult dealings and the kids were left to run around and entertain themselves. At one point in the evening, a bunch of us had gathered in my cousin's bedroom, and we sat on the floor and the bed, chatting. Someone suggested that we play with a Ouija board. I couldn't even tell you at the age of 8 if I even knew what that was. My cousin didn't have a board, but she knew her friend that lived right next door did have one. A quick phone call later, and the friend arrived, weaving through the crowd of adults in the living room who were oblivious to the spirit board she carried with her. In the back bedroom, we turned out the lights, lit a candle from my aunt's Yankee candle collection, and we all gathered around the board as best we could, some to watch, while others worked the planchette. I was sitting to the side, nearly up against the bedroom wall, with view of the rest of the room beyond me as I watched the spooky proceedings. Curious, I watched as, at first, the Ouija board responded very slowly. Not much was happening, and we almost gave up, when suddenly the planchette started responding to our questions. Apparently, we were talking to a little girl ghost who used to live on the property. We asked her her name. She said, Molly. We asked how old she was. The planchette moved to the number 7. Mid-sentence of asking her how she died, the lit candle gave out a large pop, and we all jumped, and a few of us muffled a scream. Suddenly, I had this eerie, heavy feeling that we were not alone. I frantically scanned the room as to what was wrong, desperately looking to see if anything was amiss, while debating whether or not to alert the others of what I was feeling. My mouth was open to protest when someone asked again how the ghost child had died. The board quickly spelled out fire. And our room was quickly filled with the strongest smell of smoke I had ever experienced. The darkened closet directly across the room from me was open, and within the hanging clothes, boxes, and shoes, I saw someone standing there. Mostly hidden in shadow, but I could distinctly see 2 bare, pale legs and feet of someone in there. The legs had burn marks on them and were smeared with soot. I screamed. Everyone quickly looked at me and then pivoted to see what I was looking at, and then they screamed too. They also saw the legs in the closet. We all screamed louder and scrambled to get away, panicking to get away from the closet and out of the bedroom. We opened the door and slammed into my uncle and other relatives who were there to see what the heck was going on. Talking over each other, we explained as best we could what had happened. My uncle checked the closet, and there was nothing there. There wasn't anything in there that we could have mistaken for legs, and I know what I saw. I remember every burned detail. My cousin was scolded for playing with a Ouija board, and the friend was sent home. The adults were convinced we just freaked each other out. But I don't know how my cousin ever slept in her bedroom again. My husband and I had just moved into a house right behind the home that my parents lived in. They owned this house as well and wanted to rent the space to us to be close to them since I was expecting my first child. Before I lived in this house, my older brother lived there. I was a teenager and he had just moved in with his pregnant wife. I remember shortly after they moved in, she confided in me that she thought the house was haunted because she would see the closet doorknob rattle. At the time, I didn't believe it was paranormal. I just thought maybe she was imagining things. I had completely forgotten about this until after what happened to me. Shortly after the birth of our son, my husband was switched to the graveyard shift at work, leaving me alone at night with our newborn and our 2 small dogs. My mother asked if I wanted her to stay with me at night, thinking I would feel unsettled by myself, but that just wasn't my way. But about a month or 2 after moving in, I started hearing the closet door open. We had a mirror with metal hooks that hung over the closet door, and every time we would open the closet, it would rub against the top of the door frame and make a loud screeching noise. I would be sleeping in bed with the baby in his bassinet nearby, and our dogs on the floor next to the foot of the bed. The first time I heard it, it was probably around 2 or 3 in the morning. I heard the loud screeching noise of the closet door open, and I sat up looking at the closet door. It was now open about 6 inches. I looked down at the dogs and they were awake, looking at the closet. I wasn't quite sure what to make of it, and eventually I went back to sleep. It happened about 5 more times within the next couple of months. I told my husband, and I think it spooked him more than it did me. On one of his days off, while we were asleep at night, we heard the screeching of the door open. He sat straight up in bed and just stared at the closet door. Nothing else happened. I just went back to sleep, but it seemed to bother him, and he was awake most of the night after that. The last time it happened was about 2 months after it started. Again, I was home alone sleeping with the baby and our dogs. I heard the door screech open, waking me up. I looked at the door, and it had opened its usual 6 inches or so, but then I heard the door continue to open. Suddenly, the dogs started barking. One was barking away with his ears back and fur up. Our other dog, who was always the brave one, ran under the bed and started crying. I had never seen him scared of anything. Their reaction really scared me. The door, thankfully, stopped opening when the dogs started barking. That night, I had trouble sleeping. I told my husband, and he put a lock on the closet door. I made sure I closed and locked the closet door every night. A year later, I again found myself alone at home. My husband was working and my son was with my parents. I walked by the closet door when I noticed it ajar. I no longer liked to leave it open, so I tried to close it. I say try because the wood on the closet door had started to warp, making it swollen and hard to close. I had to lean against it and push the weight of my body against the door to try to close it. Then I started banging along the edges of the door to try and get it to close and latch. In between one of those bangs, there was a big bang on the other side of the closet door, at the height of my shoulder, as if somebody hit it with their fist really hard. I could feel the vibration of this bang against my body since I was leaning up against the door. I still had my hand in the air. I stepped away from the closet. I didn't know what to think, and I lowered my hand. I tried to keep cool and went into the living room and sat down in front of the TV. I was too spooked. I was only seated about 30 seconds when I got up to go to my parents' house. I didn't mention this to them. I felt silly telling them that I think there's a ghost in my closet. After that, I had my dad sand down the closet door so that it could close correctly. I always locked it, and I made sure to never bang on it again. I haven't experienced anything else in the house, and it's been 5 years since the last incident. Growing up, my grandmother lived in an apartment upstairs in the same complex where my family and I lived. It was an old building with only 12 apartments in total. Since before I was born, my grandmother had been living alone. Now, in her apartment, she had this closet in her hallway that seemed to have a strange occurrence every month. Once a month, my grandmother would ask my mother to come upstairs and help her check her closet. She claimed that the night before she would hear a lot of noise coming from this closet. However, one day my mom was busy and asked if I could go over to her place instead. Little did I know, it would be the start of a series of strange and unsettling experiences. As I entered my grandmother's apartment and made my way to this closet, I was taken aback by the sight before me. It looked as if someone had ransacked the entire closet. Her clothes were ripped down from the hangers, boxes were open, and their contents were scattered across the floor. It was as if a tornado had swept through my grandmother's closet, but left the rest of the apartment untouched. I asked my grandmother if this happened every month, and she confirmed that it had been occurring for the past 20 years. At the time, I was young, and I simply tidied up the closet before continuing on with my little kid day. However, around 2 years later, my mom suddenly passed away. In an effort to save money and have some support, my grandmother decided to move in with my dad and me. We were in the process of moving when my dad asked me to retrieve some papers he had upstairs in grandmother's bedroom. Reluctantly, I made my way to her apartment, feeling a sense of unease. When I walked past the closet, I could hear loud banging noises, as if someone was desperately trying to break out from inside. Trying not to think too much about it, I brushed it off and continued towards the bedroom. However, as soon as I stepped inside, the bedroom door slammed shut, trapping me inside. Panic set in as I struggled to open the door, only to find it was being held shut from the other side. Luckily, I managed to force the door open, and I ran out of the apartment as fast as I could. As soon as I fled past the closet, I noticed that the banging had intensified and the whole structure was shaking violently, as though it was on the brink of exploding. Completely terrified, I made it back to my own room, tossing the keys to my grandmother's apartment to my dad, and I exclaimed, "Forget it! You go get the papers." From that day forward, we never mentioned the incident again. To this day, I still wonder what caused those disturbances in my grandmother's closet. Are you enjoying the podcast? Please leave a kind review or share it with a friend. These small actions take only a few moments, but they immensely help support the podcast. Thank you for supporting my work and the podcast. Hello and welcome back to I Talk to Ghosts. My guest this evening is Raquel. Raquel, welcome to the podcast. How are you doing tonight?
Thank you. I'm doing really well.
Are you good? Are you nervous?
I am nervous. I am. I'm anxious, and I've been preparing myself for like several days now. Yeah, but I am kind of anxiously waiting.
And that is completely fine. And sometimes, like, I ask because sometimes I pick up on that anxiety or the anxiousness, and then I get anxious too. And I'm like, all right, it's just her. It's just me. It's everyone. It's cool.
Yes.
And when like energy is building, you just don't know how your system is interpreting it either.
Yeah.
So that energy alone could have been your family gathering around you, and you're just feeling it, you know?
Yeah. I can see that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just really interesting. Okay. The first things that are coming in for you is I'm getting this sense of encouragement that you can do this. There's talk of like abundance and being grateful, and don't be uncertain about things. Don't shy away from things. Don't take a step back when you get excited about going forward. Does that make sense to you?
It does. It does. I feel like I take a step back just because I want to make sure this is 100% okay for my family. Mm-hmm. And within, again, I'm speaking from a mother's perspective, like, is it okay for my family? Is it okay for me? Mm-hmm. And is it really going to be okay for them? Kind of situation. And so I do that, and I guess it's hard not to.
Yeah, I completely understand.
Yeah.
And I feel like there are people connected to you who their secret was leading with their heart. Does that make sense?
It does.
And when we shift to that, the brain doesn't have time to second guess. Is there a particular shift for you that's you're contemplating right now? Yeah, because this feels like move to me, even.
Career, mostly. I feel like I'm stagnant in this. In the area where I live, there's not a lot of opportunity. Yeah, yes, and my husband and I have been, we've been playing around with the idea of completely leaving the state, moving to the East Coast, finding a new life out there. He works from home. I'm in the medical field, and so it would be feasible, but it doesn't feel like this is home anymore.
Yeah, I get that. Okay, I want whoever's talking to me to come closer. I'm getting a lot of like mother, grandmother energy coming through. Does that line up for you?
Yes, there should, actually. Could be my grandmother who just not recently, had it been about a year, but she passed away. My mother and, mother figures.
Yeah. What they're sharing with me is a lot of laughter and gathering and talking, enjoying each other's company.
Yes, they were each other's best friends. It feels like I've never seen a more tight-knit group of women. who enjoyed each other's company. Whenever they did get around each other, it was always chaos and they're troublemakers, and ready to get into some kind of mischief.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that mischief could be at the kitchen table too,
Yes. Oh my God, it was the best gossip.
Yeah, we're talking about generations here, but I'm also getting the sense of being the same age relationship. Do you know what I mean? So it's not just maternal, like mother-daughter. It's also friend.
Honestly, truthfully, I see that more with my sister. She and my mom were very close, and we spoke about, being twins, and they were incredibly close and more of a friendship, because when she passed away, my sister said my best friend died. Okay. But yes, with my mother and my grandmother, and especially with, my aunt, who they were all very close and definitely spoke every day.
All right. Let me see. Is when a group comes in together, I try and sort them out a little bit. It was being shared with me, roses and cutting flowers.
There used to be my grandparents had a rose garden, or just roses out in their yard, and my mom's name was Rose.
Oh, okay. With the roses specifically, I'm seeing them kind of being cut and having to avoid the thorns. Like it seemed like this was just part of the process, which makes sense if they ever cut the flowers and brought them in or put them in a vase or something like that.
Yes.
Okay. Sometimes things come in and then I have to figure out a way to express them in words. Someone is coming forward to emphasize that they had to stop and rest. They had to stop going. It's like, okay, no more of this, no more of that.
My aunt passed away from, she had cancer in her breast and metastasized to her spine. It just got really bad, and she had to stop a lot of what she was doing. And we were really close, and it was always, she couldn't, there was limitations to what she could do, and before it was always go, 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 and always ready for a good time, But yeah, so I can see where that would come into in her situation, where she would literally just have to sit down.
Have to stop. At one point, was she bedridden?
Mm-hmm. She was.
And it feels like she hated it. And she judged herself for it, like she was critical of herself about it. Like, I can't believe that this is me, and kind of turning it inwards and blaming herself. Like she just hated it so much. And then she blamed herself for it, just in the language of, I can't believe this is me. I can't believe I'm this way.
Yeah, she was very young.
Sure.
Middle age. Her sons were teenagers at that point, but yeah, she was. I can see her hating it, but she would never admit it out loud to anybody, because she just. It was. I can see it as an internal pain.
Yeah.
To where she couldn't get up and leave at the convenience that she once had.
I think this is coming from your grandmother. Do you feel that you get signs from your grandmother?
I don't know.
You don't know?
I find dimes all the time. I see hawks, I love hawks. I think they're so cool.
Is this a situation where it's like you notice it, but you're not sure what's going on?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Especially find dimes when I'm having issues, or like I'm kind of torn between a situation, or I'm unsure,
So it's like encouragement.
Encouragement, yeah. Like when my heart aches, it's like, it's where the sign is like, someone's watching over me, you're going to be okay.
Exactly.
That type of situation.
Exactly.
And they're always super shiny, really nice dimes.
Yeah, let me just reiterate that a little bit. That your grandmother's bringing it up first. I don't think it's necessarily just her, But she's like, we'll talk about the signs. There's signs here. So I always tell everyone when it snags you in that way, it feels different, right? So lean into that and even say, thank you, or I'm listening, and feel free to give me more, or, kind of lean into the emotion that it carries with it. Mm-hmm. And then just don't doubt it. Like we were talking about this earlier before we started really chatting about how we can analyze everything and pick it apart, and then sometimes we're left with nothing. And it's like, yeah, we should feel it. We should feel it. Little random details. Nail polish. Was someone big on doing their nails, and I'm even hearing them tapping a little bit. The emphasis I have on this, and they're just so flawless, glossy. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's just coming through.
My grandmother's nails were always perfectly manicured. She did them herself, and I remember when I was younger. This is kind of gross. Her nails, when she would break it, it'd come off, and I'd be like, "Can I have that?" So I could pretend my nails were like really long. And
kids are the best.
It's kind of nasty. It's kind of gross. I see that now.
Sure, now. you...
But yes, her nails were always. She took very good care of them.
I'm seeing either like cards or game. It kind of feels like bingo or something like that going on.
Yes. We, whenever we would get together as a huge family, we played loteria, which is Mexican bingo. And it is so much fun, and we would play for money. I'm talking about like 20 people just sitting in the living room, telling stories, jokes, and it was a lot of fun, a lot of laughter. But yeah, that was the most fun thing, and that's something I've gotten my husband into, and my sons, they love it. And they're the same cards that my mom had when she was younger.
Oh my
so
gosh.
they're really old and tattered, but they're beautiful.
That's so special.
It is. It is.
Oh my gosh. I'm so glad they showed me the bingo, because I never would have guessed that. Again, let that analytical mind go, right?
Right. Yes.
Okay. I'm seeing it's either a horse figurine or a horse, and it could be a symbol too. Can you think of a connection with that? I don't want to start guessing on it. And it's okay if you can't.
Another aunt of mine she's still around. She has a ranch with horses, and I don't know. When I was younger, I was bucked off a horse. It hurt.
Yeah.
It really hurt. That's the only connection I can have to a horse.
Like, I'm getting this cowboy vibe from someone, and I'm trying to figure out who that is from.
In my grandparents' living room, every time my grandfather went hunting, he'd mount deer head. I grew up in Texas.
Okay.
It's a ranching community, so he definitely wore what I guess you would assume as a rancher, but it's definitely it's cultural in how he was dressed.
Okay. Yeah, I'm getting the sense from him that he loved the outdoors. He was very careful about money.
Yes.
Be careful about money. Like, he could not. It's almost hard to get him to spend anything,
Yes.
And he's just coming through with that, and like, go outside, it's free, and what else? Oh darn, I'm losing it a little bit. It feels like another favorite thing of his to do was just to sit outside and just be. It's like that was his rest, would be to go outside.
Yeah, he was always outside.
Okay.
And it looked like, I always wondered if he really was working, if he just didn't want to be in the house anymore, because he would just find something to do.
That's it. That's what it is. Because
And
it's like, I'd rather go sit outside.
yeah, but it would be, if it was sitting, he'd be out of eyesight of everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
But he was always out. He was always doing something, and we'd see him walking around constantly.
Yeah. It's like, what are you doing out there? He's contemplating life. That's what he's doing out there. He's contemplating life, not spending money.
Yes, exactly.
Oh, he's coming through with this sense of fairness about him too. I kind of, it's almost coming through as kind of strict.
He was the most stubborn person I've ever met.
He was what?
Stubborn.
Yeah. And he had this mindset about things, and those are the rules that he set up as to how things worked and how it should be and what's fair and what isn't. And
it's very much black and white.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No wiggle room.
So he just wants to pop in and say hi, and then he's still around too. Okay.
I miss him.
Yeah. Okay. Horoscopes. Did anyone take a lot of interest in just horoscopes?
They all did. They all were. In our culture, we're very much into, faith healing, and my mom was always, one of her friends, she believed was psychic, and so she would go over and ask for advice and talk and kind of thing. But yes, I can see that they were all of them, very much into, yes.
Yeah. Well, it's like free juicy advice, horoscopes, It
is, and it's fun.
Yeah, it is a lot of fun. I agree. Okay. Gonna just be really random.
Sure.
I was being shown a car, and it feels like it was just a tank of a car or a boat of a car. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Older model. Does that make sense to you?
It does. Yes. Yeah. Well, my grandfather did. Okay. The one I think of, which I'm picturing, is he's had for years. He bought it new, barely even drove it, and even when he passed away, it was given to my youngest cousin. So, I mean, he had it for more than 20 years, and it was in working condition, and my cousin drove it until he couldn't anymore. But it was a big car, bigger than, the boat. It was very roomy in the back. Because that's whenever I went somewhere, I remember just being overwhelmed with how much space was in there.
Yeah. It feels like your cousin really drove it.
He did.
Like that's when it got the mileage.
Yes. Again, my grandfather would never. It was the Sunday car when they went out to church.
Yeah, but the way just so you know, the way your grandfather is kind of saying, yeah, he got the car, and then he drove it. And you might think that his opinion would be that he drove it. But no, he's actually really, really glad that it got used.
Yeah.
And that it really served your cousin.
For somebody else, yes.
Yeah. He's very happy. Yeah, he's smiling about that. He's got this satisfied smile and kind of leaning back. And they're like, he's very happy about that. Okay. I want to make sure I give you the time. You've got a lot of family members. They're here. They're connected with you. But I want to hone in for you. So let me ask you, was there anyone you specifically really wanted to connect with? Or is the collective okay? Because I can stay in this space or I can lean in more, whichever you'd like.
I think the collective is okay. I was happy that, you met my mom and my aunt and my grandfather.
Mm-hmm.
My grandmother.
Yeah. I know it's hard.
Yeah, it is hard. I love them all.
And they love you too. And I feel like I'm holding back this floodgate of advice from them. I always like to be like, well, now she needs to know who's here, and it needs to be certain before you just start saying advice, because it could be coming from anyone, right? But, you know, okay, we've established your family is here. I think they want to talk about your husband a little bit.
Okay.
Okay? First off, they really approve. They really like him. Is he on, like... they are talking about someone who seems very curious and somewhat silly.
He is the silliest person. It's very difficult to get him to
be serious.
You know, it's just like, hey, can you calm down for a second and then let's just talk about this. Yes. He has the same sense of humor as our 7-year-old. Like, you know, they get along so well because they joke. They appreciate the same jokes. It's just
that is so sweet.
And
I think that's sweet.
Yeah,
all right.
He's never outgrown it, and he will forever have a little kid energy.
And you know what? I think that's wonderful. And you might not expect this from your family, but they are saying it's wonderful too, and that they're finding him curious, funny, creative. It feels like they're bringing him up because that energy can shoehorn you out of your comfort zone. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
I do know what you mean. Yeah.
So it's like, don't just come at things from this serious manner. Come at it from a sense of curiosity and play. You know, like, how amazing could it be? How silly could it be? What would be the silliest mistake you could make, just to kind of get the levity going? And also, it kind of shifts the energy. You know what I mean? Yeah, the opinions coming in is that you're really a real smart match. And I just want to reiterate that, and that it is helpful. It's a good blend. It's a good balance that you have going on. So, and they're saying, you lack nothing, celebrate everything, you know, and celebrate everything because you lack nothing. And don't worry about it. You know, you're always going to do the right thing for yourself and for your family, and have a sense of exploration about it. Okay. And just, I said this to someone else and it's popping in again. Not making a decision is a decision. Mm-hmm. You know, and sometimes I think it's best to try and then decide, instead of saying no to yourself without doing anything. Okay. You know, so just really explore and get a little dreamy about it. Get a little daydreamy about it, and don't go to worst case scenario. Throw the best case scenario in there somewhere too. Because like, you know, if you end up moving, what if your best friend is there? It's like, just think of some really great scenarios. And if you can travel a little bit and check things out, do that. Okay. And trust your gut, trust the vibe of it. And, and they're, this is funny. They're like, make sure you go there for more than one season, so you know what it's like in a different season. Okay. I do have a couple messages that I wrote down for you before we got on the video call. Okay. You're going to love this. Step outside your comfort zone. Practice looking at the world through the eyes of the divine. And that means see the good in everything. Like, everything has a good side to it. Don't look for the negative. Mm-hmm. Look for the good. Look for the love. And allow your imagination to see the good in every person and every experience. So again, it's about shifting your mindset from the guarded, what if it's terrible, to the, isn't it wonderful? You know, it just is. It is just wonderful. Okay. Does that make sense? Does that resonate for you right now?
It does, because I tend to list the cons before the pros.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's just human nature that we do
Mm-hmm.
that. Our brains are wired to look for the danger and and we remember the negative and
Right.
everything, but that's not where living is. That's not where we're celebrating. And yeah, Christmas is coming up again. Was Christmas really big with your family?
I loved Christmas. Christmas Eve. It was a
It's so
time.
magical.
It is. I love it, and it was all the traditions. The posadas, going out and celebrating
Uh-huh.
every day for a week.
Yeah.
It was big. It was fun.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
They're bringing it up now as we're talking about this because it's like, take that energy and like pour it into the now, because the magic is in the everyday and it is in the smallest things, and sometimes we just have to shift our perspective a little and just generate that joy and that glow. And if that's hard for you to do, that's okay. Don't judge yourself on it. Take a step back and say, okay, why is it hard? And how come I can't? And then non-judgmentally, realize what is missing and how you can nurture it back. We all can lose our spark sometimes,
Mm-hmm.
but it's always there. It's innate, and life is difficult and there's challenges and we have to shelter it and bring that spark back. And sometimes it happens right away, and other times it's something we have to work for, but we can't judge ourselves if it seems like work.
Yeah.
It's kind of like we kind of drift from it sometimes, but it's always there. And life is magical, and it is about celebrating, and it is about loving, and all those memories, they live in you. And now perhaps it's going to generate from you instead of the other generations,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So keep going. Because you deserve all the silliness and all the happiness and, generate new memories that echo the old memories.
Yeah.
I think that's what they're saying. Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
You really do have a lovely family.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I think I miss them.
Yeah.
I miss them very much.
Please know that they're still with you. It's a different, that energy, they're still here. They are still here and they're still connected to you. And I know it hurts to have the physical loss.
It does.
But they're absolutely still with you, and you don't need me to bring it out, because like I say, they wouldn't be talking to me if it weren't for you, and they're with you. So please know that they love you and they're always there for you. Okay, before we go tonight, do you have a ghost story, a personal ghost story that you would like to share?
I do.
Listener ghost story.
It happened several years ago, decades even, when my sister and I were invited to stay with our aunt in New Mexico for a week. I think it's might have been the first time we ever left our parents together. With new state, new city. We're going into a new house for a week. And they had just moved there recently too. So it was fun. It was great, but I had this uneasiness in the house. And one afternoon, my aunt had to run errands, and my cousin and sister went along with her, and I was watching a television program, and she asked if I wouldn't mind just staying and watching her youngest son, he was just a little toddler, just a little guy. And I was like, yeah, sure, no problem. So when they left, the whole week I've having trouble with the TV. I couldn't get it the volume would just go, and I couldn't get it to ever work. And I would just ask for help, But so when they left shortly after, it happened again, and I couldn't get it to work, and it's like, great. and they had sitting on the couch watching TV without volume when I hear, "Hey, little girl," directly in my ear. It couldn't even been like inches away from me. I never been so scared before in my life. I instantly got up, looked around, thought maybe there was someone in the house, but there wasn't. There was no one in the yard, nowhere anywhere near the vicinity of their house, their home. Even the dogs were acting a little bit kind of nervous. So, being as young as I was, I didn't know what to do. So I sat where the dogs were sitting to keep them, so they could keep me company. I was terrified, and I waited for them to come back. And I remember saying to myself, or I don't even know if I said it out loud, but I said, "If you're from God, you can stay. If not, go away." And the volume came back up, and everything was fine.
Wow.
Yeah, and I've never been able to forget the feeling or even the sound of a voice. It was a male voice, but it scared me so much.
Wow. When they came home, did you tell them what happened?
No, I didn't. I didn't want to. I think I felt that if I would have said something, then I would have given it a little more power, or something would have happened even and made things worse. I never told anybody either, and I just ended up forgetting about it. But again, I was trying to find a rational explanation as to how it happened, and I know my family, they would have, it would have been a nonstop joke the entire time.
Sure.
I was there, just
very wise, very wise. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, sure, that happened, or saying that to me throughout the entire time I was there. I didn't want that to happen, so I just kept it to myself.
Wow. Okay. So when you needed help with the TV and they came and helped you with it, they weren't questioning that, or?
No. In fact, when I said, go away, the volume came back up. And I never really brought it up, and no one else ever had the problem.
Yeah. You just got to think that is such a strong incident that there must have been other incidences in the house that happened that maybe no one was talking about, or maybe it was isolated because you're a little bit more in tune. And it's funny that they turned down the TV, maybe in a way so that you could hear them.
Yeah, so there would be no mistaking. It was exactly what it was, and I wouldn't, associate it with the whatever program I was watching. But yeah, and again, when we get together, it's always ghost stories at night and scaring each other, that kind of thing. And so it was one of the few times I can't explain what happened.
Fascinating. What an amazing story. No, that goosebumps. Oh my gosh. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that one, because that is solid, solidly spooky. Well, thank you again, Raquel. This has just been wonderful, delightful to experience this slice of family with you. And I want to, if I could give it to you and say, here, put this in your heart. Because it just feels so loving and so interwoven, very tight knit. And just know that all of that still exists, and they want to connect on that level with you.
Thank you so much for your time and your gift. Thank you.
Would you like a free spirit reading with me and record your reading for the podcast? Sign up for your chance to be selected by visiting italktoghosts.com/guest. And with that, dear listener, we have reached the end. of this episode of I Talk to Ghosts. I hope you enjoyed my spirit work that I shared with you this evening, as well as those creepy stories of haunted closets. Have you ever discovered a ghost in one of your closets? I would love to hear your story, so please reach out and tell it to me. In the meantime, wherever you wander off to in this world or the next, just remember, come back and visit with me. Have a lovely evening and good night.